This is one really powerful example of why it's very important when you sell a flat with a short lease that you use an estate agent who knows about lease extensions. On our recent completion at Braemar Avenue, we'd set it up from the start that the buyer was going to pay for the seller's lease extension. They were going to do this on completion of the purchase, and therefore they could buy it with a mortgage even though it had a 34-year lease. I know that's possible. The seller solicitor knew that was possible because we've done it multiple times before, and it's a very standard way of doing it. The buyer's solicitor comes to us a few months into the transaction, not the start, but a few months in, saying the way we're doing the lease extension is not acceptable to the buyer's mortgage lender. Panic stations, right? You're a few months in and all of a sudden you think the buyer's not going to get a mortgage. The reality is, I already knew that wasn't the case, because when we accept an offer, we work with the buyer's mortgage broker, we work with the buyer if they're going direct to the bank to make sure they use a lender that's happy with lease extensions being done the way we do them. There's lots of lenders out there who are happy with it, so it's a fairly wide choice, thankfully. So we already knew from day one that what the solicitor was saying wasn't true. What was key then was getting the solicitor to understand that what they were saying wasn't true. And getting a solicitor to admit they're wrong is not an easy feat. So I worked with the seller's solicitor to not only email, but also call the buyer's solicitor and talk them through how the lease extension works so that they could understand how we were doing it was going to be acceptable to them so that they could recommend their client goes ahead. And more importantly, was going to be acceptable to the lender so the buyer could get the finance that was already agreed on the flat. The key here is that the solicitors had already been toing and froing and trying to explain how this worked, but repeatedly the buyer's solicitor came back and said, no, we're not doing it. That's where having an estate agent who knows how the process works, who can step in at that point and help the solicitors understand, is really key. I think there's a chance it might have resolved itself anyway, but there's a much better chance in this case that the sale continued successfully thanks to us getting involved and hand-holding the solicitors and helping them through the process. So if you're selling a flat with a short lease, you don't have to use us for the sale, but make sure you vet the estate agent you're using. Make sure they know what they're doing with short leases, because once the sale's agreed, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to get it through successfully. If you're in one of those situations, then feel free to give us a call. We're happy to share any free advice up front. And obviously, if you're our client, we'll help you through the process as well.